Alright guys, so I'm back here in my snake room, and I thought today I'd give you a little more in-depth view of my rack system in my setup here. So basically all the racks, if you've been watching my videos, you've kind of seen I have a lot of racks in here. I'll just kind of give you a quick tour of what I have going on here. I have actually multiple kinds of racks. Big racks, small racks, big tubs, small tubs, and kind of a whole menagerie of a bunch of different racks. So basically all these racks in this whole room will support my snakes beginning to end. So I have the hatchling racks over here behind me. All these, they're full of hatchlings right now. I'm getting ready to do a show in a couple of weeks. And then over here I have my grow out racks. And then over here I have basically, these are all my breeder racks here. I have this big huge tub for my retics, and then down here these are actually for bigger snakes. And so on these tubs I'm holding some of my huge monstrous ball python females. And originally I was going to breed some Woma pythons. And you can breed like smaller boas and stuff like that, but they're not really designed for ball pythons, even though I've been using them for ball pythons. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each rack basically and give you kind of an overview, kind of the pros and cons. And everything in here is made by ARS. And ARS is... I think it is the best of the best of the best. So if you're looking for the Porsche of reptile racks, snake racks, I think you should go with the ARS. And I've seen a lot of people, they kind of start with the cheaper rack, and then they're all excited, they want to get into breeding snakes, and they get these cheap racks and they fill their whole room with cheap racks. And a few years down the road, they're scratching their head thinking, I think I ought to upgrade these racks. So they go through and kind of get medium quality racks. And then they kind of move to a warehouse and start thinking, I think I want to upgrade my racks again. It's kind of the same way in my garage, and you're buying tools, you buy all the cheap stuff, you fill your garage with cheap stuff, and then it all starts breaking down, and then you're like, yeah, I better get some nice tools. So I kind of figured right from the beginning that I wanted to get the best of the best right from the beginning. And I bought it a little at a time. It's really, really expensive, but you never have to replace it, and it really holds its value. So if I was to go through and to sell a lot of these racks, I could almost get at least half of what I paid for. I'd say maybe 80% of what I have into them. And you won't get that on a cheap rack, let me tell you. So before we get into the racks, I kind of wanted to give you a little animal adventure right from the start. So I have this big, huge retic down here. And if you thought playing with 2,000-pound bulls was scary, how about playing with a 50-pound retic? So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to pick this girl up all the way up. You've probably seen me move her. And usually what I do is she's big enough to go from tub to tub without actually picking the whole snake up. And I haven't picked her up since she was probably about 30 pounds. And now, the last time I weighed her, she was like 49.2. And then she had a couple rats since then. So she's probably a little bit over 50 pounds. So I'm going to set this camera up on this tripod and kind of give you a close-up view of me handling this monster retic. Alright guys, so I'm doing this just for you. I got my big snake hook, got my snake boots on, and I would always recommend kind of giving her a little love tap to kind of, she's coming out a little bit. Just kind of see what mood she's in, and you can kind of break her mood if she's in feeding mode. Alright. I'm gonna see what I can do with this girl here. Yeah. Alright, Lucy. Yeah. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to head towards this tub. If I kind of get in a bind. Oh, yeah. Easier said than done. Wow. Oh, she is not happy, let me tell you. Oh. Wow. This is a beast of a snake. Take a look at this monster. Woo! Yeah! Look at that big old beast. Oh, oh yeah. Woo! Oh yeah. She definitely weighs 50 pounds. I can definitely feel it. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I just don't want to wrap around my neck. That could be bad. Oh yeah. Woo! Alright, Lucy. Are you ready? Oh yeah. Oh, playing with snakes. Woo! Yeah, I gotta stay away from the bitey end. Oh. Oh. Wow. She's a beast. All right. Woo. That was intense. All right, guys. So since we started with Lucy here, let's talk about these boa tubs. So these tubs are actually designed for boa constrictors, not really retics. Normally retics will outgrow these tubs, and I actually have some over here that are basically the same. So this is the tub she was in, and this is actually a different size boa tub than this tub over here. So this tub was the original ARS. It was an older ARS, and these tubs stacked with these ARS 7030 rack. So basically this top rack is part of a 7030 rack, and what it really is it's a 70 series tub. Look at this guy. So it's a 70 series tub, and in a complete rack there's 30 tubs, and of course I only got 4 levels of the 7030, and that's kind of where I started with the 7030. So I had the 7030. I can't even remember. I think it was a 7030 in a boa tub that was kind of down on the ground, and then I got these ARS 8018 tubs. So the 8018, so it stacks in this stack. So now if you were to get the 8018 and the 7030, and you wanted to get a boa tub that fit in there, I don't think you could get it because they don't make it anymore. So the new boa tubs are actually designed to fit on an ARS 5040. So this is a 50 series tub here. This is basically like a grow out rack. And I've actually seen some people breed ball pythons in the 5040s. So these are the new boa tubs, and they slide a lot easier. And also, if you notice, there's not quite as much room. Well, you probably can't notice unless they're side by side, but this one is a little bit bigger. So let me just show you Lucy. She really is designed. She really should be in this bigger tub. And if you look at how big the tub is, it's a lot deeper and a little bit wider. So unless I actually measured it, you couldn't really see the difference. But take a look at that one compared to this one. You can see this one's a little bit smaller. I really like the bigger ones myself. And I remember when I first got it, and Lucy was pretty small. I'm like, man, that tub is way too big for Lucy. And and then as she started growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as retics do, I actually started out using Reptichip in the bottom. And the Reptichip comes up, a few inches. And if you can kind of look at how much clearance she has now, if you add the retic onto that clearance, what is Lucy doing over here? She's checking everything out. She really doesn't have enough room with the retic, and that's one of the reasons I went back to the paper towel and the paper substrate in this big tub. So that's kind of the story behind that. And then on these, basically the heat strip on the big boa tubs is just this plate right here. And it doesn't really go along the back, it goes along the side this way. And it's kind of the same on this one. It's just basically on one side. So another thing about these original racks that I bought, these are actually not the hybrid racks. These are the welded racks. And so if you take a look at this, if you try to move this rack, you can move it, but it is extremely, extremely heavy. I would say this rack right here probably weighs, I'd say probably weighs between 800 and 1,000 pounds easily. That is a big, heavy rack. And then compared to my other racks, like this little Hatchling rack, this is a hybrid, and it moves really, really easy. And I'd say that only probably weighs maybe a few hundred. So there's a huge difference in weight. And not that you really move your racks that much. Most of the time they're pretty stationary. But if you're moving your racks a lot, I would think about getting the hybrid if you can swing it. So if you would have seen this room like a year ago, you wouldn't have recognized it. It's definitely not the same room. So actually what I did is there was a guy selling his whole collection, and I bought, I think, almost all of his females. And it really boosted my operation. But I didn't have all these racks to start. And what I used is actually wire shelving. It's like the wire shelving on wheels, and believe it or not, I used like Rubbermaid totes, the ones that are like about that big, and I drilled holes in the covers and put some retic in there, and they were great. I think I had like 20 snakes. And then what I did later on is I bought some of these. I actually bought this 50-40 here, and then a couple boa tubs, and kind of moved all my smaller grow out stuff into here. So all this stuff is the stuff growing up. This stuff is all, some of these are almost ready to breed. I would say this pin pied's about ready to breed. And actually I did breed this girl here. She's hiding. That's pretty funny. And I think she might lay eggs, but I think this is actually a pastel spider, possible yellow belly, possible het pied from. She's 3 years old, and she's kind of a picky eater. I'll just cover her back up. Yeah, so I got some of these. This one's definitely not ready. Wow, I just cleaned these, and they're shedding out. Pretty interesting. So that's a beautiful. Beautiful clown. She's no longer in shed. I put a little in shed. So I kind of the one thing I really like about these racks is it's metallic, and you can put these. Basically, I use a label maker with magnetic tape, and then if they're in shed, I'll put it in shed, and then I'll make sure to come back and make sure their moss ball is wet, make sure they have enough humidity, and then if they get stuck in shed, I'll turn it upside down, and that means I need to go back, and usually what I do is I wipe it down with a paper towel. And some people soak their snakes in tubs. I like to just get a really soaking wet paper towel and just kind of wipe the snake down a little bit. So let's see. So that's kind of my breeders and my grow outs, and then this year I had tons and tons of eggs and hatchlings, so I was kind of forced to expand really fast. And the first rack I bought was this ARS 1039, and it filled up so quick I couldn't even believe it. It has 39 tubs, and these tubs are, people are, some people say, how are your racks holding up, and how are your, is it going to hold up to the long-term use? And these tubs, let me tell you, this is really super thick plastic. I can't ever see this breaking or wearing out. And wow, this little hatchling, it's just a pastel, but whoo, look at how bright that thing is. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it is glowing. I think it's brightening the whole room up. So, this is actually my pastel scaleless head. Ooh, this will not be at the show. Yeah, so that one's one of my holdbacks. So yeah, she is definitely going to be one of my future breeders, and it seems like the scaleless head for some reason really enhances the colors in just the single scaleless head, which is really interesting. And then kind of for ease of maintenance, what I do is I always get extra tubs, and then I bring the extra tubs down on the table and kind of fill all the tubs with the bedding and the water and everything. And then I have the tubs, I can just swap them out real quick and kind of do a batch at a time. You'll see some of these tubs, like this one up here, I'll have one extra tub, and then in this tub I have like coconut husk bedding. It's kind of my display for when I'm taking videos. And this I have the moss for making my moss balls. And then all these are empty, these 50/40s. So that's pretty much my setup. Let me one other thing is, let me show you my thermostats. So each level on every row of everything except these boa tubs, there's a heat strip on the back, and they're all controlled by heat controllers. And let me show you what those heat controllers look like. Okay, when you see this, you're going to say, you definitely went overboard on this. So take a look at this. So this houses all my breeder females, my retic, and all breeder females up here. And check out what I have for my thermostats. So I actually have two Herpstat 4s, and I have a VE300, and I keep them all at 90 degrees. So you see they're all at 90 degrees. So a lot of breeders will change their heat, and I always keep pretty much the constant heat. And if you notice, I have actually 9 levels and 9 heat controllers. So for some of my other snakes, like for my hatchlings, let me show you this hatchling rack here. So this is my 1039 here, and it just has basically one heat controller. And the probe is basically in the middle. So what happens if you set the heat controller on one probe in the middle is 90 degrees, and then the top and the bottom are slightly lower than 90 degrees. And I did the same thing with this. So this is kind of, I have some liners up here. So this is like stuff you never see up on top. So I have kind of the same thing up here. And the thing is with the hatchlings, let me see. I had some of my labels falling off. That's the other thing, is if you bump into your labels, they'll fall off. But the thing with the hatchlings and the heat controller is it doesn't really matter. You don't really have to have that much of a specific heat control on your hatchlings, I don't think. And they seem to be doing good. Whether, I keep the room at 81 and the hot spots at 90 full time year round. And a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna change my heat to stimulate breeding." And I found with ball pythons, every time you change the heat, no matter if you're going up or down, a lot of females will go off a feed, and that's exactly what you don't want in the beginning of the breeding season. You want all of them to eat as much as possible. So everyone's kind of, it seems like they're doing exactly opposite of what I would think you'd want to do. You'd want to keep everything constant, put the male in, and they lock almost right away. So, and then when the female keeps eating, I think it helps to really put more weight on, and helps for better egg production, I think. So let's take a look at the back of this rack. And I brought my little flashlight here to give you a little more light. So basically, this is kind of what's coming out of the heat controllers. There's a ton of stuff. There is a ton of electronics and wires. And you're like, what in the world is going on with all that stuff? So basically, what I have going on is every level has this heat panel. And then at the end of the heat panel, there's a plug that goes underneath, and then it plugs into the heat controller. And then the heat controller is controlled with a probe. So all these little probes right here basically sense the temperature of every level, and it basically turns it on and off at that level. So it basically what it does is it pulses the heat, and it really controls the temperature to really tight tolerances. So that's pretty much it. You can see on this one right here. So this is the heat probe over here for my BOA tub, and they're pretty much all the same as far as basically it has a plug-in on the strip, and then it has a sensor that goes to the heat control. So let's take a look at the back of this ARS 1039 hatchling rack, and this one's kind of set up a little bit different. I might not need my flashlight for this one. I may be able to get it out. I ran a cord up there to the other one, and this one's basically plugged in kind of the way it was designed to be plugged into. So they give you this big huge power strip. Everything plugs into the power strip on the side, and you just have one heat controller to one level. And I think, you know, ARS really designed them, and they give you this power strip, and they give you all the cords and everything. This is kind of the way it's supposed to be set up. And for my grouts, my hatchlings, that's kind of what I do. But for my breeders, I'm, you know, kind of a little more, actually we can move this to the side. I'll show you this other level too. So this is kind of set up the same way. And I kind of have a power strip on top that, let me unplug this here so we can kind of spin this around. What I really like is everything's on wheels. Let me move some of these chairs here. Am I light? Everything's kind of falling apart. But if it wasn't for the stuff leaning against it, everything really rolls really easy. And this one's kind of set up exactly the same way as the other one, except I got the BOA tubs kind of on a separate circuit. So have basically everything plugged into here, and you can see the power on the power strips pulsing. That's actually from the heat controller, and you get a really tight temperature control if it pulses the temperature, which is kind of interesting. So one thing you always want to check when you're messing with these is that all your heat controllers still have power. And they have like all these alarms on the heat controllers. You know, if the temperature is too low, if the probe comes out, if there's any problems, if there's a short circuit. The only alarm it doesn't have is if there's a power failure, and there's no power to the heat controller. So check this out. So on this level with my breeders, what I actually did, let's see if you can kind of see it over here, is I actually put a separate heat controller. It's not really a heat controller, it's basically an alarm. And I run a separate alarm on each level for my breeders, because I definitely don't want the heat dropping. And actually this stack got unplugged once and all the alarms started going off. It was a good thing I had those alarms, because normally with just those Thermostats and the VE 100 or 300, you couldn't tell if it was unplugged. Okay, so this one is my 1065, and I'll just kind of pull it out just for kicks, and let me tell you, this thing is super, super lightweight compared to the metal non-hybrid racks. And it's basically the same thing. It has this heat panel all the way through the back, and the heat panel is just it's not very wide. It only goes to there, and the whole thing is just basically set on one temperature. And I can actually feel these as you go up. It's a little bit cooler, and I'm sure at the bottom It's it's pretty cool on the bottom actually. And you can feel as you go down, it's definitely getting cooler. But you know, I suppose I guess there's different thoughts as far as the temperature. So it's actually 81 degrees in here. So I'm not sure hatchlings have to be at 90 degrees. So ideally, you know, you could put, you know, all your hatchlings in a room that's a little bit warmer, or you could actually, what I was actually thinking about is doing like one heat controller for like maybe 3 levels, and then you could get like a VE or like a Herbstat 4, I guess, and you could put, you know, 1 probe for every 3 levels and kind of control it that way. I think that'd be the kind of the ideal way to set up a hatchling rack. Okay, so when I'm switching modes, as I like to call it, I move my table from the right over to the left. And what that means is I'm switching from snake mode to rodent mode. And I have a whole bunch of rodents right here. So these are all filled with rats, mice, and African soft furs. And they like to kick out the bedding and kind of make a mess all over. And I'm always vacuuming up after them because they're always kicking out the bedding. But let me kind of show you kind of the setup here. So basically what I use is like a pine bedding. And you really have to use the right pine. Some pine will kill your rodents. And I found this pine from one of the local breeders, and it's been working great. I haven't had one single death from the wrong kind of pine. So that's kind of how I set up. And then these over here, so this is I'm kind of doing everything kind of opposite of what it should be. So ideally, they design these so you have basically pairs down here, a male and a female, and then when the female's ready to lay, you put her up here, and then she kind of grows out the babies. And what I'm doing is kind of the opposite. So down here I have some of my old retired females and some of my females that I'm growing up, and then over here I have my male with like 4 females. And they have babies right in the tub, and then as they grow up, I kind of move them. Use some of these for grow outs, but I kind of use them all for group breeding, and then just kind of leapfrog my males through. So that's kind of my strategy. And then this up here, I have 2 rows with mice and a few African soft furs up here. But the interesting thing about this rack, let me see if I can pull it out a little bit. This one's pretty heavy. And this one, they barely fit in here. So let me pull this one out just a little bit so we can get a better look at it. So originally, I started with these on the bottom. Basically the rat rack, the breeder rack on the bottom. And then I decided I wanted some mice. And I had my mice, at the time I had my mice in aquariums. And let me tell you, that is a lot of work. You do not want to breed rodents in aquariums for very long, because you'll get overwhelmed with how much work it is. So I bought a couple levels, the mouse levels, and then I was trying to figure out how to put the mouse levels on the rat levels, and they didn't have a converter, an adapter, and I actually built this. And I went to Home Depot or Lowe's, and I got the metal, and I cut it and welded it and put it all together, and I powder coated it. Well, spray painted it with this fancy finish. I even sent the design to ARS and said, hey, you should have one of these for people that want that level. And I think it works really good. I really like it because it's a good handle that you can grab onto, and you can move the rack around, which is really nice. So another thing I really like about having everything on wheels is you can just kind of you just move it around like you're just spinning stuff around, which is kind of nice. So let me show you this back here. This is kind of, I hit the top. I've never actually moved it quite that far. So this is basically holds all the food, and this will hold like, I'd say this will hold like 200 pounds of food all up in here, and it is fantastic. It'll feed these guys for a long time. And I just top it up, like I use like maybe 50 pounds a week to top off that one and this one. And this one, it's kind of in the dark, you really can't see that much, but one thing I really learned about welding this together and kind of looking at the design structure of this is that if you look inside of these tubes, it is raw metal all in here. And a lot of guys will power wash their rodent racks, and they'll bring it outside and use the high pressure and wash it, and then a few years later they're like complaining, saying, hey, my ARS rack fell apart. And that's because I think that the insides of these tubes are all just raw steel, and when you spray water, and you're actually spraying, it's not waterproof, you're spraying water into these cracks, filling these tubes, and there's really no way that it can drain, and it basically rusts from the inside. Another thing I really like about these rodent racks is the watering system. So take a look at this. They have basically 5-gallon buckets up here with a little spigot and a hose, and the hose goes to every single level and waters every single level. And then basically what it has is let me see if I can if I can pull one out here. It has this little nozzle that's kind of activated when you turn it to the side, and it basically puts out the water. And one thing you really have to watch on these is if you're cleaning tubs, that it doesn't accidentally get popped up, because then your rodents won't have water. So you have to really make sure that it's kind of locked in there. And the other thing is it seems like with my water, so I actually use well water for this, and it's really hard, corrosive water. Eats all my copper pipes. It's really bad. And one of the things in this rack system I found that it really corrodes these valves really easy, and the yellow, it basically turns green. What you basically do is you just unscrew this, and there's several parts on the inside, and you just kind of, what I like to do is just kind of flush it and let it flush by itself and kind of get all the stuff out, so it doesn't kind of stick. And I've had some stick. Actually, I think after the first year or two that I had these, some of them were kind of flooding some of the tubs. I actually had one flooded out of all these over several years. Actually, I only had one flooded tub, and what happened is a rat popped it up, and it hit the top and activated it, and it just drained the whole, basically 5 gallons in the tub. And I did save one rat out of the tub, but the other ones didn't survive, which was unfortunate. But and then after a while, I was getting little floods here and there, just like spots. And then I kind of realized that I didn't think it was the nozzle. I think it's young rats that kind of get playful, and they just like kind of playing with the nozzle. So I just kind of keep an eye for, if it's a playful rat, I kind of move it to a different tub, and then see is that wet spot on the bottom actually from that nozzle, or is it just from some rats playing around? And so far it's been really good. And then one year I did actually have a lot of these valves start leaking. It seemed like all at the same time. And I went back to ARS, and they said I should go to Reptile Basics. And I went to Reptile Basics, and basically you can just buy the ends that just pop right onto the hose here. They just pop right off. You just pop new ones on and put them in, and you're good to go for another 3 years. It's fairly expensive. I don't think you'd want to do it every year, but I'm kind of planning. I'd say these have been on here for a year, and there's no problems yet. And I think I went through twice and kind of took them all apart and flushed them. And I think at the point you start seeing leaks, you really need to go through and replace them. But this is, I mean, if you want to do rats, this is the way to go. And it's really easy. The hard part's cleaning the tubs. And for cleaning the tubs, basically, I just dump the substrate and refill it. And then like once a month, I go through and bleach everything really good. But I would highly recommend these racks. And I've seen some other racks through some other companies that are kind of similar. I just don't think they have the fit and finish. And if you look at these tubs are the bomb for the rats. Let me show you. So they are, I kind of wish I could give you a better feel of really how thick these tubs are. I have not had any chewing at all on any of these tubs. I can't ever see any rodent ever getting out of one of these tubs. They are definitely built to be rodent proof, chew proof. So, and they are really, really sturdy. And they're not too heavy, but you know, I've seen a lot of people with really flimsy tubs, and you just kind of have to watch out for that. And the other thing, some people have removable tops. These tops are not removable. And when you get these, they're basically all welded. It's basically from here all the way over to here. It's one welded piece. And basically it comes all together on the truck, all stacked, and you have to take it all apart. So one level at a time. And the little food hopper, it basically comes connected and all ready to go, and all the lines and everything. All you have to do is connect the levels. It has little T's on each level, and then just connect the bucket on top. So that's pretty easy. It's really simple to set up. So that's pretty much it for my ARS racks. And if I decide to expand out of this room, I will definitely be buying all ARS racks. I'm really pleased with these, and I personally, I haven't seen a better rack. I go to the shows, and I'll walk up to the racks, and I'll kind of shake the rack, and look, if I shake this thing, it doesn't move. Especially if I shake this one, there's no way I'm moving this. It's built like a tank. And even my ARS display cases, I mean, they are built like a tank. If you look back at one of my last videos, I unboxed an ARS display rack for selling ball pythons at the shows, and I was really impressed with that too. So ARS for me all the way. And I'm not affiliated with ARS. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not getting any money from them. I just really like their product, and I hope to continue doing my business with ARS. And you know, I've actually, you know, when I first started getting into ball pythons, I thought, you know, it'd be kind of nice to build a Hardwick rack. Kind of put my own name on it and build it myself. And let me tell you, you start pricing out the metal and the paint, and I mean, you look at the ARS warehouse and all the trucks and materials and the building rent and the trucks to haul in the material. You know, I'm sure they're running out pretty thin profit margins, even at the high price that they're selling their racks at. So for me, it's, you know, unless you want to get a big warehouse and get into the rack construction business, I don't think it's really the way to go. I think if I ever got into the racks business, I would buy ARS racks wholesale and then resell them, because I think they're that good. So that's pretty much it for my racks. And thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.